Good morning, sports fans, bettors, and cappers, and welcome to the weekday edition of the Competitive Hedge podcast. I am your host of the show, Kenneth, and thank you all for joining me here on this Wednesday morning. This podcast is all about sports and the world of betting. We talk about results from yesterday's games and wagers before diving into today's betting slate, and we cap things off with our daily betting card. Now, before we get into today's episode, we got to talk about our sponsors over at Bet99, which is a Canadian sportsbook and casino that offers in-play betting, player props, a cash out option, and many more great products. There are a variety of sports available on the website to bet on, including NHL, NBA, NFL, and EPL. Bet99 works smoothly on both desktop and mobile, and their mobile app can be downloaded from the website's homepage. Now, depositing and withdrawing funds is hassle-free with a number of well-known methods available to use, so you know your money is safe and secure. The website can be viewed in both English and French, and customer service is available 24/7 with their live chat option. So go to bet99.com to make an account. Use code SHOOTERS at sign up, and please gamble responsibly. You must be 19 plus years of age to do so. It is available to persons in Ontario only. And if you have questions or concerns about your gambling or the gambling of someone close to you, contact Connex Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. So with that, let's get into how our day went yesterday. So it was a profitable day yesterday. We ended up going 3-2 with our plays from yesterday's show. Starting in the NBA, we had the Sixers minus 9.5 versus the Detroit Pistons. That was a 1.5-unit play, and they blew them out 147-116. James Harden with a triple-double yesterday. We split on the ice yesterday. Unfortunately, had Hurricanes money line versus New Jersey. They were up multiple times in that game, but ended up losing 6-4. We did, however, have the Pittsburgh Penguins in regulation versus the Vancouver Canucks. That was a 5-4 final in that game, despite them falling behind 3-0 early. That's been a trend of the Canucks all year long, which is fall behind and or take an early lead and then end up blowing it late. And then we split on the court as well in college basketball. We did get Michigan State money line versus Wisconsin. That is now 5 of 6 wins in Wisconsin's building that the Spartans have picked up. They won 69-65 yesterday. What we couldn't have foreseen was that Vanderbilt would be very good on the road against Tennessee, a defense that only gives up 52 points per game. And so we end up losing the under 132.5 with that play. So overall, it was a pretty solid day. We're looking to build on that momentum today. But before we do, we got to talk about a couple headlines that made the news yesterday, both of them in the NFL. Starting with the DeAndre Hopkins situation now, it sounds like they just fired Cliff Kingsbury the other day, and now they are exploring options of potentially trading DeAndre Hopkins. Now, D-Hop does have 2 years left on his contract, and it's worth about $34 million, but he will seek a new deal as well. Now, he does have a no-trade clause in this, so at 30 years old, a guy that has been banged up the last couple of years. He obviously had the PED suspension this past year for 6 games, but he's missed 15 games overall in the last 2 years. And when you hit that age of 30 as a wide receiver, you can see a bit of a downturn, especially when you've had some nagging injuries over the years, which DeAndre certainly has had. He hasn't been the same receiver since he left Houston. Obviously, as I said, getting older, that doesn't help, but he is going to have a big say in where he wants to go. Now, what does Arizona do? Well, they already have a pretty solid receiving core. You got Marquise Brown. Zach Ertz got hurt late in the year, so he'll come back as a tight end. You've still got Greg Dortch. You've got Rondale Moore. So I don't know if they really want to have DeAndre a part of their long-term plans. The thing is, though, he has to agree to anywhere that he gets traded. So what are some potential targets? Well, when we're talking, you would think he would want to be going to a playoff team. Could go and play for the Giants. They need a number 1 wide receiver. Baltimore was the team that I had in mind. A lot of people will say Kansas City, depending on the status of Aaron Rodgers, potentially Green Bay as well. There's a lot of teams that could use DeAndre Hopkins' services because when he is on the field, he's a top 10 wide receiver in the league. And then in other news, we are Dallas Cowboys fans, so it was very jarring yesterday to see that Jerry Jones says that Mike McCarthy's job is safe regardless of how wildcard weekend goes. And can we talk about how absurd this really is to be content with Mike McCarthy? The thing is, he inherited an already solid roster. He had Dak Prescott. He had the two-headed running monster. He had a solid receiving core, good O-line. The pass rush is there now. They've developed in their secondary, got some pretty good linebackers as well. And so Mike McCarthy's just the new Jeff Fisher at the end of the day. He's banking on success from a decade ago, and that's why he's been employed as long as he has. At the end of the day, Jerry's always going to hire a yes man, someone where he's going to have you in the news every single day. That's what Jerry loves to do. He loves people talking about his Dallas Cowboys. But at the end of the day, you're not winning a Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy. It's why I'm very worried about this game this weekend against Tampa Bay. Mike has been awful situationally in the last year since he joined Dallas. So if they cannot win this football game against an 8-9 Tampa team that has looked abysmal at times this year, then we are going to continue to embrace mediocrity in the NFL. So let's head over now. Let's talk about the daily game slate. This is the daily games that we have that we could potentially bet on today. But before we do, let's play the video. All right, so it is January 11th, and we're going to start over in the EFL Cup because we got two games happening over there today. Starting with Nottingham Forest, they are plus 162, taking on Wolverhampton at plus 180. Now, Forest, I would say, is coming in probably playing slightly better than Wolves. They won 4 of their last 7 games in all competitions, and they are the home team in this game. They get to take on Wolves, one of the lower scoring teams in the Premier League. They do bank on the defensive structure, but they've won just 2 of their last 6 games. And so I really do like this Forest value at plus 162 on the money line. It's not something that I'll have a part of our official betting card today, but if you are looking for an afternoon play, I do like this Nottingham Forest side to get it done at home in the EFL Cup. Now, Southampton, they're plus 1,100 today, taking on Manchester City at minus 450. And Southampton, they have just 2 goals in their last 3 home matches in all competitions. On the City side, they have picked up back-to-back wins over Chelsea by a combined score of 5-0. So very solid backline to give up no goals over 180 minutes to Chelsea. And so I kind of like the both teams to score at no at minus 134. People might think, well, they are going on the road to Southampton, and that's always a concern when you're banking on the better team on the road to just go and get a win to nil result. But I do like it today at minus 134. It feels like a good spot. Again, not an official play, but if you're looking for an afternoon play, then it's definitely got some value there. Now, NBA-wise, we have 8 games happening tonight, and we're eyeing half of them. The half that we aren't, though, we're not looking at the Spurs or Memphis tonight. I don't trust the Spurs to cover that line, but I also don't trust Memphis enough to take that spread right now. They've been fairly inconsistent for a top 4 team in the West. And so this was one that I just looked at, felt like maybe a little bit of a trap line there at minus 13.5. So I don't love that play. Minnesota and Detroit is another one. This is one of the early games tonight. And Minnesota, they're minus 6.5 on the road, but they're 8-12 against the spread on the road this year. Whereas Detroit is only 7-11-1 at home. Now, I would like to believe that Minnesota can go in and cover, but after Detroit got blown out last night and then being on a back-to-back, I was just a little bit of cause for concern that maybe Detroit shows up tonight, so I stayed away. Milwaukee and Atlanta. Milwaukee's minus 2.5. They're just split down the middle head-to-head. They're 5-5 head-to-head in the last 10. They're 5-5 against the spread, and they're 5-5 over/under. So I really didn't have an accurate read here. If I had to go anywhere, it would likely be the Bucks at minus 2.5. But that's more so me betting on the Bucks being a wagon than actually believing that they would cover the spread. If anything, maybe just take their money line. It would be a little bit juiced, but something that you could potentially put in a parlay. And then Houston and Sacramento. Sacramento minus 8.5 tonight. This is very similar to the breakdown of Minnesota and Detroit, where you've just got a bad away team and a bad home team when it comes to against the spread. And over-under, they are pretty split as well. So it's just not games that I'm looking at. So which ones are we looking at? I'm looking at the Bulls tonight versus the Washington Wizards. Looking at pretty much a pick 'em right now, you got Washington at -1.5. So I guess you would consider it an upset if Chicago wins, but they are pretty solid on the road this year. They are 11-9-1 against the spread. Both teams have won 6 of their last 10, but Chicago has won 4 of the last 5 head to head and 7 of the last 10 head to head overall. So if anything, I would be backing the Bulls tonight as a potential winner. Then you got the Knicks. They're -4.5 at home versus Indiana. But Indiana come in playing much better than the Knicks. They are 11-8 against the spread on the road, and the Knicks have been pretty abysmal at home. And the Pacers, they've won 8 of their last 10 compared to the Knicks, just 4 wins in their last 10. And so what I do like is Indiana tonight to cover that spread. Really think that it's going to be a tight game with a potential road upset by the Pacers. Then you got the Pelicans. They're taking on Boston. This line opened at -8.5. It's now at -9.5. The Pelicans are banged up, but Boston are at home. Even though it is a bit of a steep number, I like Boston today. Robert Williams and Marcus Smart are also game time decisions. But I think even if they don't go, Tatum and Brown should take care of business at home against the banged up Pelicans. And then to cap things off, you got Phoenix and Denver still waiting on this line, but Phoenix have lost 9 of their last 10. Denver's won 8 of their last 10 and 7 straight at home. So I do anticipate a steeper spread for Denver, but one that I might jump on by a couple points and toss in a parlay. NHL wise, we got 4 games and half of them I'm interested in. Not interested in Capitals and Flyers. I hate that Washington's -165 on the road, and I'm certainly not backing the Flyers again. It's a little bit too soon to back the Flyers after we had that winner a few days ago. Edmonton versus Anaheim, I really don't like a -225 on the road, but definitely never backing the Ducks. Now, Nashville and Toronto is one that I'm looking at. Nashville won 7 of their last 10, including they are 5-0-1 in their last 6 road games. So Toronto and Nashville have also gone under in 5 of their last 8 games. So if it goes under once again tonight, I think that really favors Nashville in the way that they play. So give me Nashville tonight versus Toronto as an official play. And then San Jose versus the Kings. The Kings are red hot. They've won 7 of their last 10, and they are 5-2 at home over that stretch. San Jose just 2 wins in their last 10. They've had quite a few overtime or shootout losses over that stretch, but head to head, the Kings have won 2 of the last 3. I really do like them today, even though the money line is a little bit juiced right now. It's actually all the way up to -225. We got it in early yesterday, but it is a play that we like nonetheless. And so let's head over now. College basketball wise, we got 9 ranked games. 4 of them I actually really like tonight. I'll quickly go through the ones I don't. Charleston and NC Wilmington. I just hate the road favorite number there. Creighton and Xavier. I really think Creighton should cover in this game, but they're a bit too inconsistent. Boston College and Miami. I don't think Miami deserves double-digit juice quite yet. And South Florida versus number 1 Houston. Not looking to bet a -23 tonight or back a 7-9 team to cover. And then Missouri and Texas A&M. It's a straight-up pick 'em for me, and I don't really love either side. Now, I am looking at number 6 UConn, who are -1.5 versus number 25 Marquette. Both teams show up on the against the spread front. They've covered in 23 of their 34 games this year. But what I do love is that Marquette has gone over in 8 of their 10 home games this year. And so with UConn's offense as well, I think this is a great overplay. Bama and Arkansas, number 4 Alabama taking on number 15 the Razorbacks. Arkansas, they give up just 62 points per game, and they've gone under in 7 of their 8 home games. So I think as long as Alabama doesn't push the pace today, that is a nice underplay at 152.5. And then you got Pittsburgh versus number 24 Duke. You can get that line at -7.5 on some books. I've seen -9 some places. If you can get that 7.5, I think it's a good spot. They may be 7-9 against the spread overall, but the Blue Devils are 5-3 at home against the spread this year. They're going to have to lean on their defense and that crowd to get this one to cover, but I would also lean under because 141.5 seems a little bit high for a team that could hold Pitt to potentially in the 60s. And then number 17, TCU, and number 10, Texas. Much like TCU versus Baylor, I think I'm going to get the road dog to cover here at +6. They are 8-6-1 at covering, and TCU has the better defense, and I expect a lower scoring game here. So I would like that TCU spread. So with that, we chatted about all the games. Now, what are we going to do with our picks? With our last call pick segment, which is sponsored by Last Mountain Distillery. Let's play the video before we get into our plays. Last Mountain Distillery is family owned and operated in Lumsden, Saskatchewan, the heart of grain country. Saskatchewan's first micro distillery success lies in their commitment to producing high quality handcrafted spirits. Their craft distilling process brings out the full flavor of the grain and leaves a smooth finish unlike any other. Their holiday seasonal releases are out now, their famous cherry whiskey, chocolate hazelnut truffle liquor, and new local candy cane vodka as well. Go and check those out. Check out the old fashioned as well, the regular vodka if you like making some Caesars. They've even got some dill pickle vodka in there as well. So go check them out at Last Mountain Distillery. So with that, we gotta make it 2 days in a row. We haven't had 2 days in a row in a little while here. We've been a little ice cold recently. So coming off that 3-2 day, let's go 5-0 today, starting with the Indiana Pacers plus 4.5 versus the Knicks. I found it at minus 103. That's why you got to shop around for 1.5 units. I mean, two teams trending in opposite directions. McConnell and Nesmith are game time decisions. That's the only real injury concerns for the Pacers. Knicks might have RJ back, who's a game time decision, but I think the Pacers should be fine with or without Barrett in the lineup for the Knicks. Halliburton hasn't forgotten Wally's words from a month ago, and so I'm expecting a big night out of him and the Pacers to cover on the road. I also love that I can find Nashville plus 1.5 at minus 138 for 2 units because the Predators not losing in regulation in their last 6 road games feels like a really good spot. And I really wanted to take them outright on the money line, but shopping around, I was able to find the minus 138. They've won outright in 3 of the last 5 versus Toronto. So it feels like a good road spot to cover here. And the fact that I can even get them if they go to overtime and lose, then they cover. I really love this spot for the Predators on the road. I also like the Kings in regulation versus San Jose at minus 125 for 1 unit. Hopefully you got that one early. I would guess by now it's around minus 140 or minus 145. But a red hot team in the Kings taking care of business at home. The Sharks are a bottom 5 team. They're not great on the road to boot. So I think it's going to be a multi-goal win. But just in case they try to cover late, getting it in regulation at minus 125 feels like great value. Then you got Alabama, the Crimson Tide taking on Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm taking the under 151.5 for 1.5 units, and it's because I think Arkansas defensively are solid enough to keep this one a little bit lower scoring than expected. I don't think that we're going to see any 66 to 60 type games, but I could definitely see this one being in the 72 to 68 range, which would be a great cover. And so I like this ranked matchup. I think the defense will ramp up in the second half, especially given this is a rivalry game as well. So give me the under tonight. And then the full-on homer play of the day, we're wearing the sweater. Duke Blue Devils minus 7.5 versus the Pitt Panthers at minus 117 for a unit. As you can tell down below, it's a homer pick, but play it if you like. Duke, they have historically played well against Pittsburgh, especially in their own building. And so I think it's a great home spot, a get-it-right spot, because Duke have not been great recently, and they cover better at home on the year. So give me the Blue Devils today at minus 117. But thank you, everyone who tuned into our live show today. Go follow us on Twitter or at HedgePod is all of our social platforms. Just go check them out. Toss us a follow. Really appreciate the support. And we will see you guys tomorrow morning for the competitive Hedge